1. Liftoff. We have a
The time right now, 8:25. Destination Space News. We are moments away from a SpaceX rocket launch from Cape Canaveral. SpaceX is trying to make history tonight as it attempts to launch and land its Falcon 9 rocket on our Space Coast. News 13's Greg Pallone joins us now live from the top of Exploration Tower at Port Canaveral. Greg, why aren't you at the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station as usual?
Does anybody have any chance?
Well, it's nice, Marla, to be up here on the 7th floor of Exploration Tower here at the port, and simply for safety reasons. SpaceX keeping us, along with our media friends, over here off the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station due to what SpaceX is trying to pull off tonight, and that is that landing of the first stage booster. That's the secondary part of their mission. Of course, they're going to be launching the 11 satellites for Orbcomm. That's the primary mission, but they're going to be attempting this, and for safety reasons, they're keeping us and just a minimal staff of SpaceX employees and also Cape Canaveral Air Force Station employees out there on the actual property where this is going to be taking place. We do have a great view up here. We see lots of folks that are around here near the port, near the Air Force Station. They're lined along 401. They're lined along the beach line, getting ready to watch some history tonight, hopefully, and that is, again, to land this first stage booster on the landing pad out there, the SpaceX landing pad, which is just a couple of miles from where we are, and that is something that they're trying to do, and that would make history. This also, too, a very important mission for SpaceX. This is a return-to-flight mission, if you will. You'll recall what happened back in June when they had the mishap out here for the cargo mission to the International Space Station, and that was something that they worked on. They improved the Falcon 9 and got that up and running again, and now they're having this return-to-flight mission, which is going to be launching here in just a couple of minutes from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. Again, just to talk a little bit about the secondary goal for SpaceX is that within about 10 minutes or so of separation, that first stage will come back down to the ground, guided by engines and fins, landing vertically on their new landing zone 1 using landing legs. Now, when the rocket returns to land, SpaceX says we will hear a sonic boom. Now, that, of course, will depend on weather conditions, but you'll recall we have not heard such a sonic boom from any type of spacecraft since the last shuttle mission. That was way back in July of 2011. So a long time since we've seen something out like that or heard something like that taking place out here on the Space Coast. If all goes well and that booster comes back the way it's supposed to, that boom likely will be heard here in Cape Canaveral, Cocoa Beach, Merritt Island, Mims, Port Canaveral, of course, Port St. John, Rockledge, all points in between out here in the Space Coast. Of course, weather a factor. We do have some cloudy skies, but that not a factor in the launch. So we're going to go ahead and step aside. The top of the window is at 8:29. It's a 5-minute window, so a small window for this Falcon 9 launch. We're going to step aside and listen to the commentary as they're going to try to launch this mission and get it underway for Orbcomm, but also the secondary mission is to land their first stage booster for SpaceX. So watch as we're going to go ahead and go with the countdown and listen in. We'll be back with you in a moment.
Stage 1, Stage 2, pressing for flight.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds.
Falcon 9 is configured at flight pressures.
T-minus 15. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We have liftoff of Falcon 9. Falcon 9 is cleared to tower.
materials engineer, and I'm going to talk you through some of what you're seeing and hearing as the vehicle continues to ascend. You can tell that we've had a successful liftoff initially. The Falcon 9 has cleared the towers, and it is rapidly approaching what's called maximum aerodynamic pressure. This is known as max Q. It's when the rocket is pushing hardest against the atmosphere.
Speed 550 meters per second, downrange distance 2.3 kilometers.
For this. You can see the engine plume.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
The engine plume widening as the rocket is increasing in altitude and there's less pressure.
Telemetry power still look healthy. MVAC has begun chill.
MVAC chill means that the second stage engine is preparing itself to ignite. Shortly after main engine cutoff, we're going to separate the stages and begin the second stage ignition.
T plus 2 minutes. Speed 1.2 kilometers per second. Downrange distance 11 kilometers.
Main engine cutoff approaching shortly. Returning to land as the second stage powers the Orbcomm satellite to low Earth orbit.
Stage 1 is on its foot.
The fairings have successfully deployed. You can hear everyone is phenomenally excited here. The Merlin vacuum engine is burning bright as it's moving up to speeds approaching 8 kilometers per second. The first stage will soon begin its series of 3 burns to head back towards Cape Canaveral. First, it will reorient itself. It will reorient itself using cold gas thrusters. It will perform 3 more burns as it approaches landing zone 1.
Stage 1 boost back is starting.
The boost back is the primary burn that will get the vehicle moving more slowly
Propulsion is nominal.
and heading back to Cape Canaveral.
New Hampshire acquisition of signal.
Man, that is awesome. We are well on our way to taking Orbcomm to orbit, and that boost back burn, that's the first step of a really intense process to get that stage 1 back on land, man.
Yeah, like so many things just happened. My heart beat twice. 2 beats since we were on last, first of all. Secondly, there were so many important things. There was first the takeoff, the immediate takeoff, which is just a huge relief. Then there's max Q, and you have the maximum pressure. Past that, huge relief. Then the stage separation. Everyone here went nuts. People here were going crazy. And then the boost back. So everything is so far looking great, right?
So far, so good. Yeah, that boost back burn is going to go on for about 30 seconds, and then it's going to cut off. We're going to flip the stage back around, and as we enter that atmosphere, those grid fins are going to pop out and start the guidance in through the atmosphere.
And so we're about 4 minutes away from when it would touch down, right?
Exactly,
Okay.
yes, about 4 minutes away.
Everyone's really excited.
A lot of
here. It's
energy.
awesome.
A lot of
So
energy.
much energy. So much energy. Yeah, that boost back burn is really.
Hello?
And there you have it, the launch of a Falcon 9 rocket from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. What we're all waiting on right now is that first stage booster as it's coming back to Earth. A little bit difficult for us to see us from the top of Exploration Tower over here at Port Canaveral due to the cloud cover, but some of our media friends are pointing and they'll see something from here and there. But it should be, hopefully if this is going to be a success, should be landing here shortly. We're looking at it a little bit to the left where the pad is from us, left of the Cape Canaveral lighthouse. So that's the spot that we're looking for where the landing pad is, landing pad 1. So we're waiting to see just that. Now, once the first stage did separate and they had the successful separation of the booster, we did spot it as it was coming down, but then we lost it in the clouds. So that is something that we're waiting to see right now from our vantage point. But boy, we heard a lot of applause from out here at the port. It was as quiet after the rocket launched and got past us, at least the sound of the rocket. Lots of applause. A beautiful launch. It looked like a meteor in the sky, and once it got up there, it really looked like one of the stars in the sky, at least the part of the rocket that was remaining in flight. The booster, of course, hopefully going to be landing here shortly. We're keeping an eye out for it, and certainly going to be monitoring SpaceX as they are letting us know exactly what's going on. But they've had a couple of the stage 1 burn started, the fairing was deployed, all those different things that are supposed to happen have happened so far, and the stage 2 burn, according to SpaceX, remains nominal. So that's a good sign as well. So we're waiting to see if this is going to be a successful thing. You can see it if you look at it now, that red star in the sky, and it's right above us right now. Wow, that is an incredible sight. That looked, you have to see that. This is from our vantage point right now over Port Canaveral, coming down to the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, the burn, and now it's gone. So we're just going to keep an eye on it. We're going to keep an eye on the glare. The booster coming down very quickly, like a star dropping from the sky. And yes, as one of our friends out here, it is moving fast, moving very quickly, catching some of the clouds. We can see a little bit more right there. That a great shot as well.
Greg, this is Marla back in Orlando. We can see that little dot, that little flame that you're talking about off and on. And as you're keeping your eyes to the skies, what we understand is that there's also going to be a sonic boom. Oh, there it's back. You're also going to hear it, possibly.
Yeah, sweet. Marla, need to interrupt you. We're seeing that burn taking place right now, just like a bright, brilliant star about to land on land. Everything looking good right now. The booster is vertical. That's what it's supposed to be, almost as if it's a launch happening backwards. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Nice, easy landing.
Wow. Amazing. Space history in the making right now. You're seeing it live right here on News 13 at 8:38.
That was the twin sonic booms that we just heard. It might as well be the 4th of July out here, Marla. Exciting, very exciting. And these are people who see this type of thing, or at least cover space every day. As they say, giddy as a schoolboy, keep calm and land on land. That's one of the shirts we're seeing out here. How exciting is this?
That is beautiful. Beautiful.
And I'm not sure if you want to come back to us and see me on camera after that. This is extremely boring compared to what we just saw right there. This has nothing to do with what we just saw right there, what we heard with those sonic booms. The first stage booster just falling from the sky in a vertical position, and then the engine lit and slowed it down. The landing legs obviously there to guide it in, the fins there to guide it in, and a landing. We are, at least we're looking at it right now, I think we do have confirmation that things worked out as we hear officially from SpaceX that stage 1 has landed. Stage 1 has landed. Space history being seen right here tonight on News 13. Marla, I gotta say, you and I have done this for a long time.
Yes.
But to see something like that was absolutely incredible. I hope you and our team back there at the station there in Orlando saw what we saw, but to experience that and to hear it and to see it, it's just incredible. Steven Spielberg's got nothing on this. Amazing. Truly amazing.
Oh, Greg, this has just been fantastic. Just a perfect launch and a perfect landing on Earth. Now, give us some perspective, Greg, about that landing, because SpaceX tried to land that rocket, that same Falcon 9 rocket, out in the ocean on a landing pad, and it just never quite worked, did it?
Yeah, you know, the sea is very much different. They wanted to go ahead and try to land it in the ocean about 300 miles off the coast on that barge, that platform, just to kind of get themselves the hang of it. We saw those couple of attempts that happened earlier this year. They were not successful. We saw the video, though, and it was close. It was close. Those particular stages landed, but not quite. And this is what the precursor was for this. This was all the kind of experimentation, if you will, doing those different type of things, because this is why they want to do this, to be able to bring the booster back. They're going to save potentially millions upon millions of dollars per launch in reusability, and that's exactly why they wanted to try and do something like this. And they brought it back to the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, just a short piece of property, if you will, from where they took off at the launch pad. So that's the thing, and that's another thing that they're talking about, this area, the Space Coast, with the Kennedy Space Center, of course, the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station being the 21st century spaceport. You build the rockets here, you manufacture the rockets here, you launch the rockets from here. Now, all of a sudden, you're bringing the rockets back here. Just an incredible piece of history being witnessed here tonight. So, yeah, those attempts earlier in the year, not successful. This one is the one they wanted. And so far, we have ourselves a successful landing of a rocket, just a short piece of property, just a small distance away from where it just took off minutes before. Incredible.
Greg, tell us about how this is a game changer, how much money and resources this is going to save.
Millions upon millions of dollars. They've talked about some of these boosters being valued in the $60 to $70 million range. What happened in the past, the booster would fall in the ocean, and it would be possible to recover it, but unfortunately, many of those boosters would be dented if the parachutes didn't deploy properly. Also, the cost that it takes to get the ships out there to recover these boosters far out in the ocean. Now, with this, you don't have to worry about that. You eliminate that, and that's the cost savings. That booster right now, out on the pad, out on landing pad 1 for SpaceX, it's ready to be refurbished. It's ready to be stacked with another rocket for a future launch, and everything happening right here in this area with all these workers employed. So you're talking about the cost savings. You're talking about efficiency. This is the wave of the future. This is what NASA certainly wanted with the commercial program, taking over these type of things. This particular mission, launching a satellite or some satellites up to orbit for Orbcomm. That's another company. But with this type of thing going on, you have SpaceX launching for NASA, missions to the International Space Station, eventually crew, mind you. Cargo right now, but eventually crew. Yeah, this is a game changer. And really, it's hard to put it into words, but that's about the best way to describe it right now, Marla.
Well, I'm so jealous of you out there right now, Greg. You're our eyes and ears right now. Tell us, the sonic booms, was it sort of the same that we heard from the space shuttle era?
Yeah, because when the shuttle would come back, and once it's just a smidgen away from the landing facility over the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, you would hear those sonic booms, and they would echo across the area. That's when it signified that the shuttle was coming home. For people who were in their house, perhaps making some dinner, not knowing that the shuttle was landing, the sonic boom saying boom, it shakes your house. This shook the port. Everyone at the restaurants here in the Cove area, everyone who was watching, we heard the applause. Those of us up here on the observation observation deck here at floor 7, and also our friends down on floor 4 here at the Exploration Tower, we all shook. And that's just an extremely loud situation going on. And yes, reminiscent of the shuttle program. You remember, Marla, back in 2011 when we were there, when the final shuttle came through. And indeed, those sonic booms, very, very loud and authoritative, to say the least.
I certainly do, Greg. It's just amazing to see this chapter now opened in space history. Tell us a little bit about the Orbcomm satellites. They've accomplished, well, first of all, SpaceX has accomplished several things this evening. The return to flight, the launch of the Orbcomm satellites, and also landing that Falcon 9 first stage back on Earth. Those three things together, this is a huge night for SpaceX. But tell us a little bit about that payload.
Well, the payload, you have 11 satellites. They weigh about 400 pounds each. Are communication satellites, and Orbcomm will be serving customers across the globe with that, and that's why they hire firms or companies, commercial companies like SpaceX, to be able to deliver that payload into orbit. So that was the primary mission. They had waited for several months because, unfortunately, what had happened with SpaceX back in June when the Falcon 9 had that problem upon liftoff back then. They had to wait for SpaceX to get back up and running, for them to refurbish and get things back on track with their Falcon 9. But it was, I'm sure if those folks were here right now, they would tell you it was worth the wait. That mission underway, they'll deploy the satellites, and that will go about a couple hundred, maybe 400 miles above Earth in a geosynchronous orbit. So that taking place, it's hard to dismiss, though, the secondary mission in this, and as you mentioned, the landing of that booster. That right there, if you want to talk about a Christmas present coming early, that was it indeed right there. So yeah, that was kind of the sidebar to everything. Really kind of overtook this mission on what happened with that. But yeah, just an incredible sight to be able to see that. I'm sure we'll have those happen during the day. It'll be just as impressive. But to see it here at night, to see it here with the port all lit up, all these people gathered around waiting for this. It's a Monday night. Yes, it's Christmas week. Time to celebrate. And again, kind of Santa coming early for the folks at SpaceX tonight.
Certainly, Greg. And what is so astonishing as we witnessed this space history taking place tonight is that first stage began taking its commands and began turning itself around almost immediately.
Yeah, upon separation, that's exactly the way they programmed it. Once the stage separated, that's when those commands, which they had in a certain order, took over. And once it started coming back to Earth, and as we witnessed, pretty fast at times, you could see it was already vertical. It has those fins to guide it and everything. And then once they got to the point where they needed to slow it down, they fired the engine one more time, and it floated down like a hot air balloon. Just exactly what they had hoped for, exactly what they had planned for. And again, with those two situations that happened earlier in the year with the attempt to land on a barge, they did not work out. But you know they used that information to benefit themselves and to work towards something like this tonight to make space history. This is not the last time we're going to see this. There's going to be other companies that are going to try it as well. And it's just something that is incredibly impressive. And I think that also, too, it happening here on the Space Coast where we've had all this rich space history is very fitting. Marla?
Absolutely. Well, doesn't this give SpaceX now an edge?
I would say so. You know, we had the other landings taking place, but this is actually during a mission, and that's the difference here. That's what's never been done. Actually, during a mission, you can have a situation where you're practicing, if you will, and that's great. That's fantastic. But at the same time, when you're doing it as part of a mission where you are paid to deliver a product, as SpaceX did for Orbcomm, and then be able to do this on the side to benefit your company. Yeah, that absolutely gives them an edge, and there's no doubt about it that they certainly made some history tonight, and they definitely follow the social media feeds if you want to get an indication or any type of inclination how important this is and how this is going to just grow and explode as far as in that type of social media universe, how impressive this was and how amazing this was, and it happened right right here. And that, to me, and I think to you, Marla, is equally amazing.
Absolutely, Greg. I can't get over it. I'm just amazed and astonished, and I'm so happy for the folks at SpaceX and for all the crews that actually covered this, such as yourself. That is a pretty tough crew to impress out there. They've seen it all. They've seen everything from the 1960s right up through today. So to hear them cheer and just applaud like that at the top of their lungs, that's kind of noteworthy as well.
I'm not going to knock it. I'm getting up there in age myself, but some of these guys have been out here for a long, long time. They've seen a lot. You mentioned it. They've seen it from the Apollo days, even earlier. To hear them get excited and to hear them cheer like that as they would for their favorite football team winning the Super Bowl is something that's very incredible. So, yeah, to see that zest and that renewal, and you mentioned a new chapter in space history, just amazing how it's going on. Marla?
All right, thank you. News 13's Greg Pallone covering this historic launch and landing for us tonight. Thank you so much, sir. We will check in with you again a little later this evening right here on News 13. And I want to remind our audience that News 13, you just saw space history take place on News 13 this evening. If you were watching us earlier, we had the launch and the landing of a Falcon 9 rocket. The Falcon 9 rocket lifted off with its payload on board successfully, and the first stage of that rocket successfully landed back on Earth. This is a game changer, an astonishing feat, and this is something that is going to certainly boost SpaceX's standing in the realm now of space exploration. So once again, space history tonight, and you saw it right here on News 13. We're going to bring you much more on this later this evening right here on News 13 and at mynews13.com. Right now, it is time to check the weather, and your weather on the ones a little bit late because of this landing.